Well, hello, friends. We're back with another episode of Podcast in a Peartree. I'm Samantha.
I'm Aaron Lee.
And I'm Danielle.
And today we are going to talk about Amazon's Your Christmas or Mine, which is interesting because we haven't reviewed an Amazon film before. So I'm excited about this. But before we start, what's everybody been watching?
I checked out The Holiday Sitter on Hallmark. I'll be honest. I checked it out because we were going to review it. We were excited about it. Hallmark has been promoting the heck out of this movie. It is one of their tent poles of the season. It is the first Hallmark Christmas movie to feature an LGBTQ main couple. So we were all gung-ho for it. And I had to text Samantha and Danielle after I saw it and say, I think we need to switch gears on this. It's not that it's bad. It's not that it's good. It's that it's very flat. It's very regular. And there's not a lot to talk about. Jonathan Bennett falls down. The Christmas tree falls on him. That's the funniest thing that happens. Boom, we're done.
Saved you 2 hours.
Right there.
I tried to watch the setup at least, and then I fell asleep. Oh, sorry.
Did you wake up at the end? That's what I always do.
Yeah, I did. And I had DVR'd it, and it was showing the screen like it's done. Oh, crap.
It exists.
Yeah.
The film actually that I want to talk about is, interestingly enough, on CBS. They don't do a ton, but this year they have 3 or 4 films. And so I watched a movie called Must Love Christmas. Wow. This movie is definitely in my top 5 of the season because it was unexpected, but also the actors that were in it, I kept seeing everyone. I was like, you look familiar and you look familiar and you look familiar. It's an all network cast here. We have Lisa Lapira. She's in this show called The Equalizer with Queen Latifah. And then Neil Bledsoe, who recently left GAC.
And he was in Christmas at the Drive-In with Danica.
Which I hated that one. But he was great in this film. I think it really speaks to how you have to have the right script and the right chemistry and it can work. Then another Nathan Witt, who was on Lifetime holiday movies with Merry Little Christmas series, etc. Also, Sarah Strange, who's from A Christmas Detour on Hallmark. And there was BJ Harrison, who is Mrs. Walters from Candy Cane Lane, was in it as well. I was just seeing all these faces. I don't want to spoil too much about it because I want people to watch it. I want you to be trying to figure out why it's called Must Love Christmas. It's kind of like there's a Netflix film called Love Hard. And we're like, why is it called Love Hard? And you're just trying to figure out the title, like what it means. And I want you to think about that with this film if you watch it. Aaron Lee, they have a Dickens Christmas festival that takes place in it. And it's not cheesy.
I'm there.
There's no cheese. Yeah, the cheese level is not very high here. I love it. And the storyline, you think it's going in one direction, then all of a sudden in the last 20 minutes it changes and you're like, what? And then it just like, oh, okay. I wasn't thinking that's how you're going to get there, but okay, sure. And so
Danielle, does it at
recommend.
all parallel the Warner Brothers film Must Love Dogs with Diane Lane and John Cusack?
No.
I thought
Thank
that
goodness.
when you said it.
It does not. No. It's
Wow.
great. PBS quality, excellent. I would pay money to watch that film. It's great.
Oh, wow.
And I believe those can stream on Paramount Plus. I believe. No guarantees, but check it out.
Wow, a who's who of Christmas movies. That sounds exciting. But you know what else is exciting? A departure from all the networks that we've been watching all season. We found a really fun movie on Amazon Prime. I can't believe it. And honestly, we stumbled across this. Then all of a sudden, Darren Lee, you texted about it. And I was like, I literally just watched this last night. I can't wait to talk about it.
I just saw that it was trending on Amazon Prime. And there's not a lot of things trending on Amazon Prime. And then I saw the preview and I was like, oh, that looks cute. I will save that to the list. Samantha, lead us onto the setup for this film.
Well, the setup is, number one, it's a British film. So this is a classic British sort of Christmas film that I absolutely adore. I mean, my favorites of like Love Actually, The Holiday, this kind of fits into that. It starts off with 2 students that are going home for Christmas. They're going to get on their trains and they are newly dating, young love, Haley and James, they're called. And they're saying goodbye to each other for holiday break at the train station. And then all of a sudden they make this split decision that they're like, you know what? I'm going to go surprise the other one. They can't be without them. So they are going to go and try to get on each other's trains and then surprise one another once they get to their hometown. hometown. And that's where it all kind of falls apart. So basically they like pass each other. They're completely unaware and they get off on each other's trains, but they are both doing the same exact thing. So basically they just got on the opposite trains and they end up in each other's hometown, but not with one another.
That really reminded me of a great Christmas story called The Gift of the Magi, where the husband and wife can't afford to give each other Christmas gifts. And the husband is a photographer and the wife has beautiful hair. And the wife cuts her hair off to buy her husband a camera. And the husband sells his camera to buy his wife hair combs.
Oh.
Yeah,
So
it's sad.
it
It's
really
a very sad story.
It's a very sad story, but it's but a beautiful story because their love exceeded material things.
Yes.
In this, their love exceeded their need to be with their families.
Right.
Because their families are very different.
Yeah, absolutely different. They come from totally different backgrounds and they didn't know that about one another. So once James shows up at Haley's house, obviously she's not there. And so he gets kind of wrapped up into her family. And she's from a classic Northern England family. And they're very fun. It's a multi-generational family and loud and just making fun of one another and just really, really fun in that way. And then Haley ends up at James's house, which he is a royal. She finds out that he's actually
not that kind of royal, guys.
No, he's actually an earl. What he's 307th from the throne.
I'm sorry, not in line to the throne, in line to be a character on the crown.
That's right. That's how many
So
would have to
funny.
die for him to be on the crown.
So funny. Absolutely brilliant.
He comes from a super posh family. She didn't realize this. And she stumbles across his house, meets his father, who is a lord and has photos with the royal family and all sorts. So they have completely different backgrounds and they kind of spend Christmas with each other's families and learn a lot about each other along the way. They're able to communicate with each other at one point and kind of goes from there. I don't know. This film was so fun. There were so many fun elements. The families were amazing. It just reminds me a lot of my in-laws at Christmas with Haley's family, where you just kind of, what they call it in England, you're taking the piss out of each other all the time.
This movie had a little something for everyone. It had family, it had funny, it had heart, it had loss. It really just had all the elements and they mixed them together so well. I had so much fun watching it. I picked at straws. I picked at some straws to find a negative. Always something. You can always find it. Here's the worst I can say about the movie. It snows for like 24 hours and still there's only an inch of snow on the ground. There would be more snow than that. That's the worst thing I can say about this movie.
That's what I mean. It's just so fun. It's quintessential England. It's just a blast to watch. I'd watch it again. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if either of you watched Dash and Lily from Netflix. It's kind of like a celebration of young love. I don't know. It's just really sweet. There's so many funny things that go down in it and they just learn a lot about each other's families.
I think we should mention though, James's family, who it's really his father because his mom has passed away and his father's, yes, he's a lord, but he's also very bitter about this loss, still grieving it. And so it's a stark difference. There's no brightness in that home. When Haley shows up, he thinks that she's interviewing for a house cleaner. He's so grumpy. And the other thing that's really crazy about this film is that the families don't know that they've been dating. Right. So they're trying to hide it the whole time. And that's also what creates the chaos because here's Haley. She's going to James's dad's house. He's really strict. And she's like, who are you? And she's like, oh, you don't know who I am. How do you, what do you do? Right. And then same thing with James's side. He goes to them. He's like, what's the fake name they came up with him? Gilly or something?
So it's Gilet.
I was going to say, let's talk about favorite moments because I think my favorite moment is when he gets the name Gilet because he is going through this alley looking for Haley's house and he sees these two people in the distance who he thinks are hooligans that are going to attack him and he gets a little nervous and then they're kids. And he says, oh my goodness, thank goodness you're just kids. And one goes, I'm 9 3/4 and he's almost 8.
And they're demanding money from him. It's so funny.
So he's out 10 pounds and he's like, where's the road? And they point to the sign on the side of the building. He's on the road he's looking for.
So bad.
And then they're like, why are you wearing that vest? And he's like, it's a gilet. And they're like, gilet. And they just start calling him gilet. Turns out they are Haley's little brothers. So he's got to deal with them for the rest of the movie. So much fun.
And not only that, because they don't know about him, he pretends to be gay. So that just, and his name's Gilles. Like, it just kind of just like, what is going on here?
Well, I think he pretended to be gay because Haley's aunt kept coming on.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm a cougar now. It's fashionable.
Well, I will say when I was watching this with Tom, and he is sorry that he couldn't be a special guest on this episode because this film, he loved it so much because it reminded him of his family. But he will say that's kind of the thing in these types of families is that they decide a nickname for you and that's just what they're going to call you. And the funny thing about a gilet is I'll tell you a side story. My in-laws just came to visit from England a couple months ago. And it was like this inside joke for the 5 weeks that they were here because my father-in-law always wears a blue gilet. He loves to wear one. And so they came to LAX and my mother-in-law was carrying it for him and she put it on something while they were going through customs or whatever. And she lost his gilet. And so at LAX. And so it was like this ongoing inside joke the entire time he was here because he didn't have like a coat or like a light jacket or anything. He planned to wear his gilet. And so like we constantly were making fun about it the whole time. So that also resonated with us. Like this gilet like became this whole other character in this film because they just kept calling him that as his nickname. And that's actually not what his name was, but that's what the English call a puffy vest.
Dude, gilets are expensive. I have one in Bloomingdale's for $225.
That's an upscale one. You can get like a not so expensive one.
Here's one on Mr. Porter for $270. Gilets are expensive.
Well, I think James especially could afford a really nice one since he is royalty.
He also goes by his middle name.
His first name is Hubert.
And so, you know, his dad was like, who's James? And she's like, who's Hubert? There's just all these webs of lies that they uncover. And then also at one point, Haley's ex-fiance comes back into the picture.
Steve.
Steve.
Yes, he is fit.
You know, the mother really loves him as, you know, her love interest, but doesn't know that they had broken up. And he comes to the family to kind of act like, oh, I'm back. And then Gilles is like, who's this guy? And he's thinking that they're engaged. And so he's heartbroken. And so when he finally talks to Haley, he finds out that he's just kind of a stalker kind of guy that just comes to her house and they're not together.
He doesn't want to
anymore.
admit it. He doesn't want to admit that he's no longer the fiance. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So we have all this boisterousness happening with Haley's family and James is experiencing it. But then they have this contrast of Haley being in James's household and it's very somber and the dad is very difficult and she's just trying to break through. And she at some point just decides she's going to leave, but the trains are canceled. So she has to go back. And she ends up decorating the home because she finds these decorations that belonged to the mother who passed away. And that just started a bunch of sad things. But she really did a good job of having to deal with that, I thought, and gave us the kind of emotional tension and drama part to the film. Well, except for the part where she was chasing the dog and then the dog kind of got shot. Ooh, sorry.
The dog was fine. It was just a flesh wound, as they say in Monty Python. So no flesh wound. It was just a flesh wound. And so they try and cover it by putting a Santa hat and beard on the dog. I loved that.
So cute. Well, and the
Really
dog was
adorable.
also like, not only is it sentimental because it's a dog, but it was James's mom's dog, wasn't it? And like the father was, you know, really attached to it because that's kind of like the last piece of her that's still around living. So there's a lot of sweet moments. There was moments when I did well up and like got a little tearful.
You'll
Right, like
laugh. You'll cry.
You'll cry.
You'll have a good time.
You will. There's a lot of fun here and it's really funny and it's sentimental. Like you said, Erin Lee, it really has everything for everyone.
In the perfect amount. Nothing's overdone. Nothing's underdone. It's really quite an excellent film.
Oh, and something though to James's side of the family, one of the characters that Haley encounters is the trigger happy guy who's on the property. They're like, wow, is he the kooky neighbor? And then it turns out he's actually the grandfather.
Yeah, he's the granddad.
Like, What? And it's played by David Bradbury, who is
Bradley.
Bradley. People probably know him best in the Harry Potter films. But I know him as someone who plays the first Doctor in Doctor Who, if anybody watches Doctor Who.
Do you know who he reminded me of? That character kind of reminded me of, you remember in Home Alone, the old man that was the neighbor that they were scared of? Kind of reminded me of that type of a character.
Yeah. All right. So that was a good movie, guys.
I loved that movie. It was so good.
It was like the love heart of this year so far.
Totally. And unexpected. I just didn't even know anything about it. We just found it and then we decided to watch it. And that's kind of like the best kind of thing that happens sometimes.
We're all watching this one again. This is going to be almost an annual for all three of us. Please check it out on Amazon Prime. The movie is Your Christmas or Mine. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. Please follow and rate if you feel so inclined. Click and write a review.
And find us where you find all your podcasts.
Bye-bye.